Hello, people. As you guys can see, we're going to talk about reaction videos to the Linux Tech Tip channel. So I am going to rant, I am going to moan, I'm going to bitch. If you don't like those kind of videos, if you don't like a grown-ass man having sand in his mangina, this is not for you. If you want to know why almost every one of them is actually wrong, in my humble opinion, of course, and why I think they are missing the point, this could be for you. Grab something to drink, eat, whatever you want, because this could potentially be like a 2-day endeavor of a video, or if I'm really good at editing, which I'm not, may only be 4 hours long. So let's go into it. We have a lot of prominent Linux YouTubers here. And when I say prominent, I mean by subscriber count. Let's read some of the, what is it called? Not subtitles. Video title. Brain not working today. I watched, not all of course, but I watched quite few of them. And the gist of them are in the vein that I will say I'm going to talk about that is a problem. But saying all this, the way that I'm describing them, just the one I watch has a lot of this in it. And it's basically that Linus is wrong. Linus should know better. Linux has done nothing wrong. Linux has done nothing wrong. It's all user error to some extent. Or why didn't you read this? And you should know better. You're a tech guy and you blah blah blah. All of these things. Linux has done nothing wrong. Which is kind of like a little bit of a motive in the Linux community. I am going to shit on the Linux community apparently also today. But again, here, Linux failed. Linus Tech Tips Daily Driver Challenge. Linus Tech Tips the Linux channel. Titus reacts to Linus Tech Tip channels. You had one job, Linus. Online Linux gaming is not ready for prime time. It's not. KDE Dev reacts to Linus' new video. You can go on here and here and here. Titus versus TTS or TTT, reacting to Linus Tech Tips. There's a lot of them down here, and I will try and do it. This is like the 4th time I'm recording this video here. I will try and do it as condensed as I can make it. The overall arc that I'm trying, or idea I want to put into you guys' head is that if Linus is having a problem, more people are going to have problems. Linus is a typical user. Yes, he knows about hardware, but he's not an OS user or specific guy. Linus Tech Tip. If you look at his videos, he is a hardware consumer electronics guy. That means that he's not that, versed in operating system, kernel designs, programming languages, and all these kind of things. That's why he has this dude down here, for example. This lovely looking guy here. Is that his speciality of what he brings to the table in here is the software side of it and the Linux side, open source side of computing. So it's saying that Linus is at fault for basically uninstalling his desktop because he didn't read the command prompt. That's his problem. That's on him because he's a technical guy. Well, not really. He's a hardware guy. Just because you know about hardware don't mean you know about software. Even if you know about software don't mean that you know about Linux. So why is the Linus Tech Tip experience with Linux actually more right than wrong? Well, it's because he's going into it. And Luke also, they both have problems. Different problems, but they both have problems. Luke is more a software guy. He does a lot of work with software, and he's tried Linux many times before in his life. So he's not really a newbie or is just getting his feet wet because he has some previous experience. Why he also have a better experience running a lot of things on the Linux. But Linus is almost as close as we could come to the everyday user, especially gamers. Because what Linus is doing is he's running top of the line hardware. Not many people doing that. But there's still a lot of people buying the newest graphic cards, the newest hardware, big screens and stuff like that. Especially gamers. They love their fucking graphic cards. They love big screens and stuff like that. He is the closest you can come to the upper end of the nerd spectrum for computer users. That's not, gamers, people that like fancy fucking shit. He should not have a problem under Linux. He shouldn't. Linux should be so easy for him and so approachable for him that he would have no problem whatsoever. Because his use, the way he uses computers, the way that Luke is using computers is how the vast majority of people are using computers. Some of you guys will say, Kent, you fat bastard. He should just not use top of the line, latest and greatest hardware. Why not? It works on the Windows. Why should he be like, oh, I want to run Linux. Yeah, I can't run the things I want to run. I have to wait 6 months or a year before I can run this and that hardware. Makes no fucking sense. If you want Linux to become more approachable, if you want Linux to be better for the masses, I'm not talking about getting a better market share, bigger market share, but if you want Linux to be as good as Linux can be, so it can be a great alternative to Windows, Linux has to be and deliver the same as Windows at a minimum, meaning the things that works under Windows has to work under Linux. Hardware, software. That's just that's what people expect. Have to give people what they expect. And it has to be as user-friendly as a minimum as Windows, because that's what people expect. You can't sit here and say Linux is great, and then if you have to downgrade your computer, you can't run the software, you have to take out a loan and get your kidney away, and yeah, you know this, like doing your work in 30 minutes, yeah, you're now doing some work in 40 minutes to an hour because of optimization problems and blah, 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 blah. If you want Linux to be the best it can be, it has to be, at a minimum, as good as Windows and as supported as Windows and support the same thing as Windows, at a minimum. Then we are comparable with Windows. If you want to be better than Windows, it has to be more easy, more approachable, support more shit, run better, run faster. In some instances, it does run better and faster than Windows, but not a lot. But in some instances, depends on your use case. Stability and anti-privacy and telemetry. Gamers don't care about it. Average consumers don't care about it. Should they? Yes. But do they? No. That's the world we live in. I use this quite a lot. You have a Mercedes, top of the fucking line Mercedes. I come with like a broken ass ladder, also not a broke, but a ladder, you know, like the lowest tier car that you can get. But it's made in the US of A. It's made by virgins, you know. There's no foul play there's no component in that fucking car has been made by dubious practices or anti-consumer practices and stuff like that. Everything is up to snuff. It's fair trade, everything you can dream of. But it's not a Mercedes. You don't get the all of the comfort that you get in Mercedes. You don't get all of the fancy shit you get in a Mercedes. You get a 4-cylinder engine with a 4-gear manual transmission, no air conditioning, no with basic heating, no electrical windows and stuff like that. You get a bare fucking minimum car. If you want everything else, you put it in yourself. You want air conditioning? Well, here's an air conditioning pack. You can put that in if you want. Or if you're really, really adventurous and you want a really fancy air conditioning pack, you have to basically build it yourself and install it yourself. That's how we are selling Linux to people. It's not up to snuff to what the average consumer want. And then we are like, oh, but you get all of these advantages that we see as advantages. Control, there's no spyware on it, there's no telemetry, there's no privacy snooping, and all of that fucking shit. Sadly enough, the majority of people don't care about that. And you can't make them care about it. Because if that was the biggest concern for a computer user, was the telemetry and all of that shit going on with Windows, they will already be using Linux, because the average computer user know almost everything that Windows is doing to them. If you ask your average computer user, they know that Windows is spying on them. They know that it's taking telemetry. How much and stuff like that can be some maybe a little bit in the, you know, how much is it and how intrusive is it? They may be a little bit like, I don't really know. But they have an idea of what's going on. Just like they have an idea that the second they use YouTube, they are now getting probed and tracked, and their firstborn is being taken and all of that fucking shit. So we can't sell Linux to them like that if that's what we want. We have to give them a product that is at a minimum as easy as Windows, as compatible as Windows with what the general populations are using for computer hardware. And we have to give them the software they want to use. Alternative software don't cut it. Another example. I have a Nike. I have my own shoes. What do you take, the Nike or the shoes that I make? These shoes here may be just as good as Nikes. They may even be better. But what do you take? You take the Nikes because of brand recognition and all of that shit. Not to mention that if we are talking software, there's a lot of education and certificates and all of that fucking shit that goes along with Adobe Photoshop, for example. That makes it way easier for someone that wants to employ a graphic design to gauge upfront how good they are at that job. What certifications do you have? And then show some projects. On the game, show me some projects that I can copy paste projects in coding, for example, and say, oh, I made this. I did copy pasted that code. I made it. That's basically to cover their ass, and that means a lot for people. I've seen clever people say that, oh, if Linus only read the fucking prompt in the command line, or if they just read this and did that and stuff like that, they would not have a problem. Well, if Linus is having a problem reading an error message the correct way, or the desktop environment is not giving them the information in a way that they can consume it or interact with it in an understandable way, that is a fault of the operating system / desktop environment. Again, you guys may hate this. If the operating system or the desktop environment allow users to break the system, it has kind of failed, because it should protect yourself against doing shady fucking bad shit. It should not, in my opinion of course, it should not be so you can't do those things, but it should warn you so you have no fucking doubts about what you're about to do. It should be so blatantly obvious that a kid know that if I click this button right now, I am now deleting everything. That's how obvious it should be. That don't take anything away from you right now that wants to go into the command line and basically do sudo, rm-rf / or what it is. Basically delete your home partition. You should still be allowed to do that. But it probably should prompt up and say, you're about to delete your fucking root partition. Are you okay with that? And if you click yes, that's what's going on. The operating system, for the vast majority of users, the biggest user group should protect the user from themselves. Because people don't want to be system administrators to run a system. They don't want to sit and learn and educate themselves just to open up Minecraft or play CSGO or do a Word document and all of these kind of things. Luke and Linus are the single most important people we should listen to as a Linux community right now. We should take all the notes we can. If you are a developer, a distro developer, or anything like that, you should take all the notes that you can from all of the Linux Tech Tip daily Linux challenges. And every time they have a problem, you should note that down and ask, how can we do so they don't have that problem next time? That's how you make Linux better. You don't make Linux better by saying, oh, it's their fault, it's not our fault. If they only read this, or they should know better. Then Linux will never become better. Let's say you want to be a better sprinter. Let's just say 500 meter runner. And you're like, okay, let's analyzing my sprint. Let's just say there are 3 stages to your 500 meter run. That's the beginning, middle, and end. You're okay at the start. You know, you get an okay push off. You're like, pew, and then you're running the middle. You have a good pace. You're actually amazing in the middle bit. Nobody can beat you in your average speed in the middle bit. At the end, you die a little bit out, and then everyone is taking over you, and you become like 4th, 5th, or 7th, or something like that. This is how the Linux mentality is, and I hate that. They're like, it's not our fault. that we can't get a good start. It's not our fault that we get tired at the third stage of the run. We are really good at that in the middle. So let's focus on being even better at that in the middle. And let's tell everyone that we are the best guy runner in the middle. That would help you somewhat. But if you don't work on the things that you're not good at, you won't become a better runner. If you're not working on the things you're not good at as a coder or developer, you won't become a better coder and developer. The same as a human. If there's things you're not good at in relationships, if you don't work on them, they will never become better. And that is what Linux should use these videos for. We should look at what are we not doing good enough for Linus and Luke. How can we make it better? Yes, of course, we should focus on the good things, but the most important things we should work on right now is the things they have a problem with. Is it as simple as making a better dialog box that pops up when they're doing crazy fucking shit? Is it just coloring a fucking button that blinks in your face like a fucking warning sign saying, "Hello, stupid guy, you're going to nuke your whole system"? Is that all it needs to be? Or do we need to redesign the way that we look at desktop environments or something like that? That's what we should be doing. Sadly enough, what I see in a lot of these instances here is that they're pointing fingers at Linus. Especially Linus for not doing it the right way, not reading the documents and stuff like that. And then they can't understand why people don't want to run Linux. It's not what you call it, it's not a mystery to me, to be honest. It's definitely not a mystery to me why a lot of people don't want to run Linux. Because not only is Linux not doing a lot of things right, but if they come to the community, you're getting like, read the fucking manual. You should be knowing this. If you want to run Linux, you need to be an educated user and blah, 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 blah. Another example, I'm a mechanic. What if I told you, for you to be able to drive a car, you need to be able to maintain your braking system, all your fluid systems, and know basic mechanic skills. Before you can even start to take your driver license. That's how we sound to people like Linus and the everyday computer user. We are basically telling them to become semi-system administrators to run a fucking operating system. The operating system is a system that sits between you and the hardware. And the operating system should get out of the way for the end user as much as possible. I'm not saying that you should not be able to do whatever you want with it. I'm not saying you should not be able to go into the command line and hack the NSA or something like that. I'm not saying that. Or that you should not be able to customize the living shit out of it or changing all the fucking colors in your desktop environment. I'm not saying that. But it should also not be a hassle for the end user. It should not be confusing for the end user. It should get out of the way for the end user. Until the end user decide, I want to be more active with my operating system. And you do that by going into the good old terminal here. And we can go and update Fedora right now. I now chose to be more interactive with my operating system. I hope you can kind of get what I'm saying here. So no, Linus did nothing wrong. Linus had not one job. Linux had one job. That's kind of like here. This video here. Where is it? For here. You had one job, Linus. No, Linux, you had one job. Making sure Linus did not fuck up. That's it. Linux had one job, making sure Linus didn't fuck up and he could do whatever the fuck he wanted to do with the operating system. This blame game is a way of pushing responsibility out of your control. It's a way of saying, it's not our fault. We can't do anything about it. We are good enough as we are. It must be the user's fault. It's taking no responsibility for what Linux is and what it can and can't do. We should take the responsibility as a community and as developers or as distribution makers and say, wow, we have actually dropped the ball here. We have actually done a lot of fucking things wrong for this specific user. How can we do it easier for this type of user? How can we do it more convenient for this type of user? That's taking responsibility. That's looking inside instead of outside. That is working and trying to fix things we actually have control over. We can't fix Linus. We can't fix the general conceptions of what operating system is for everyone in the world. but we can fix Linux. That's where we have the control. So if we can't fix Linus, how can we make it better for people like Linus? By fixing Linux or upgrading, making Linux more of what they want. Some people may say that Linux should not be an operating system for Linus and people like Luke and Linus and your grandmother and stuff like that. That to me sounds a little bit like, what's the word? Selfish reason. Let me put it that way. It sounds like a really selfish reason. I hear the same people say that Linux is amazing compared to Windows. I hear the same people say that Linux is way more stable, customizable, you have ownership and freedom with your operating system. Why won't you have other people, why do you not want other people to have the same experience? Why? Why should that only be you? Because you want to be a tech guy that should be allowed to have that experience with the operating system. Why can't Linus not have that experience? If that means that we are making Linux a little bit more user-friendly. Why should that only be us that are allowed to that? Because we want to deal with the command line. We want to go into configuration files and nerd out. And we want to go into Vim and all these kind of things. And we love fucking running old hardware and stuff like that. Why should we be the only one allowed to have that experience? Why can't Linus, Luke, and your grandmother have that experience? Even if that means altering a desktop environment to be more easier consumed by Linus and Luke and your grandmother. Because this is actually where the problem is for the vast majority of problems that he has. It's not Linux that have a problem. It's the desktop environment that they use. And maybe the software manager, in the case where he uninstalled the desktop. It's the user interface that needs to be easier. You don't have to make the kernel easy. You don't have to make the package manager easier. You just have to make a fucking easier package, you know, kind of like what Elementary OS is doing with Pantheon. We need to Pantheon up Linux to some extent. And then if you don't want that hand-holding and nursing and good boy on your head, you'll run i3, you'll run XFCE, you'll run JWM, you run, I don't know, the fucking terminal if you really get a fucking nerd bone and hard on and you sit there under your table every day you come home from work or school. You can do that. But that should not be exclusive to Linux. It should be, how I look at Linux, it's all about choice. That's the biggest selling point Linux has, is choice. You can do with it whatever you want, and you can have this whatever experience you want. To some extent with the experience, because a lot of people cannot get the experience out of Linux that they want, and we won't give it to them. That's why I'm a big component of GUIs, you know, like, I'm a big component on these things here. Control centers, GUI, configuration tools and stuff like that. Because it gives people that want easiness, convenience, a way to configure, let's say, their mouse and trackpad. On top of that, because it's Linux, and if you're a fat nerd like me and you don't have fucking any friends and you love looking at text files, you can go in and do the exact same thing on that text file. It's taking nothing away from being a nerdy geek. It's just giving people an option. And I see a lot of those people say, oh, we should not alter the way Linux is today, meaning that they only want their options to be the only options to do things under Linux. It should be command line, text files, Vim, Nano, and all that fucking nerdy shit. They don't like stuff like this. It's too easy, it's too convenient. If you want this, go with Windows. No. Why not give people choice? When I talk about Linux to people, I talk about choice and control. You can do whatever you want, and you have massive amount of choices. You don't like the way it looks like, you can change it. It's fucking amazing. You can change the fucking shit. You want to be a fucking terminal junkie. You can do almost anything you want in a terminal. You can't do that under Windows or Mac OS. You can live in here if you really fucking want to. Why do we not build on top of this? Build more nerdy geeky tool. Build more fucking, you know, GUI tools like this for people like Linus and Luke and your grandmother. So when they are like, oh, we really see this Linux as an amazing thing, all the control you have, you're out of the Microsoft crap, you know, Microsoft not crapping you by the balls and vaginas anymore. And you can do whatever you want, you can make it look really sexy and futuristic and stuff like that. Why not give them something like this here, where it's just, they can get out of Linux whatever they want? Why is the only right Linux experience this experience? Should the right Linux experience not be the Linux experience Luke wants to have, the Linux experience Linus wants to have, the Linux experience my brother and your mother and your kids at school want to have? Why should the Linux experience not be whatever the fuck you want it to be? Because the route we are going down right now, where we are criticizing Linus for having problems, and we are basically telling him and others that we can figure it out, so should you. That basically means that our Linux experience is the only and best Linux experience, and therefore you should run Linux as we are running it. That's a little bit being an asshole, if you ask me. That's kind of what Windows is doing. You have one desktop environment with Windows. You kind of have one experience with Windows. And we are going down the sound route with Linux by not looking at the things that Linux is doing wrong and try to fix them for people like Linus, so they can have the experience they want to have. If they want a more Windows experience, let us give them a more Windows experience. If they want a more nerdy experience, we are already there to some extent, but give them more tools to go in here and do all of these kind of fucking things. We should be taking so many notes about the videos for Linux. I talk to a lot of people on my channel that are using both Windows and Linux, and talk to a lot of people that are jumping between Linux and Windows because Linux is just not giving them what they need as a hobby, for work, or other instances. And that is because we don't want to listen to people like Linus. I'm out of here. This ended up being a long one anyway. A lot of fucking bitching and moaning. See you all later. Bye bye.